This message is brought to you by Alliance Bible Church located in Mequon, Wisconsin. Our vision is to captivate generations with the satisfying gospel of Jesus Christ. For more information about Alliance Bible Church or other resources, please check out our website, myabc.church.
If you have your Bibles, would you turn to Luke 5. If you have a smart device with you, you can open up BibleGateway.com, BibleGateway.com. We'll type in Luke 5 and you'll get there. Parents, we need to talk about the 5-second rule. For those of you who don't know, 5-second rule is that if food spends just a few seconds on the floor, dirt, germs don't have enough time to contaminate it. I have played that game with my kids. Frankly, I have played that with myself as an adult. The history of this is difficult to trace. One legend attributes this rule to Genghis Khan. So if that's true, we might want to rethink our practice of this. But a 2016 experiment should permanently debunk the 5-second rule. Professor Donald W. Schaffney, a food microbiologist at Rutgers University, reported that a 2-year study I was reading this article and I stopped there and I thought, 2 years to study the 5-second rule. I don't know. Maybe it was a slow couple of years. I don't know. A 2-year study concluded that no matter how fast you pick up food that falls on the floor, you will pick up bacteria with it. Okay? 5-second rule has been debunked. So Professor Schaffner tested, here's what he did. Tested 4 surfaces, stainless steel, ceramic, tile, wood, and carpet, and 4 different foods. Cut watermelon, bread, buttered bread, and strawberry gummy candy. They were dropped from a height of 5 inches onto surfaces treated with a bacteria. The researchers tested 4 contact times. Less than 1 second. That's fast. That's really fast. 5 seconds, 30 seconds, and 300 seconds. A total of 128 possible combinations of surface food and seconds were replicated 20 times each, yielding 2,560 measurements. No wonder it took 2 years to do. So after those 2,560 drops, they found that no fallen food escaped contamination, leading Professor Schaffner to conclude bacteria can contaminate instantaneously. It's up to you what you want to do with that, parents. I just passed that along to you as interesting factoid. That actually does have some bearing on what we're looking at today. We are looking at the theme of uncleanness, of contamination. A deeper kind of uncleanness and contamination, but one that can happen just as fast. Let me show you the story. Luke chapter 5, starting in verse 12. While Jesus was in one of the towns, a man came along who was covered with leprosy. When he saw Jesus, he fell with his face to the ground and begged him, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. "I am willing," he said, "be clean." And immediately the leprosy left him. Then Jesus ordered him, "Don't tell anyone, but go show yourself to the priest and offer the sacrifices that Moses commanded for your cleansing as a testimony to them." Yet the news about him spread all the more, so that crowds of people came to hear him and to be healed of their sicknesses. But Jesus often withdrew to lonely places and prayed. We are clearly looking at here a radical transformation of an individual. There's a radical encounter with Jesus Christ that forever changes this man's life. And it's not just a historical event that Luke is telling us about. He is saying something about the nature of an encounter with Christ today, in the here and now. And as we progress through this, you're going to see this has massive implications for your life. So we're looking at a transforming encounter with Jesus. We're going to look at 3 aspects to it: the precursor to it, the radical nature of it, and the costly love it requires. The precursor to it, the radical nature of it, the costly love it requires. First, the precursor to it. The guy on the ground in front of Jesus did not have some minor dermatological disorder. Luke, who is himself a physician, says that he was full of leprosy. Several scholars suggest this wasn't merely a rash, but a disfiguring disease. In whatever form it was clearly a severe case, which means he lived something sort of a living death. According to the Old Testament, a man in this condition would have to wear torn clothes. He would have to let his hair hang loose and untended. And if anyone got near him, he was to cover his upper lip and holler out, "Unclean, unclean." He would not have been able to live at home. He would have had to live by himself or with other lepers. There was no coming to the synagogue, no joining in public worship, no morning coffee at the local cafe, no hugs from his kids or his wife. Relatives might leave food for him at a designated place, but he was cut off from human contact. If he was fortunate, he might find a reasonably comfortable cave to live in. And so the social consequences of leprosy were perhaps worse than the illness itself. Leprosy was a sentence of social ostracism. The disease deprived victims not only of health, but of their names, their occupations, their social habits, families, fellowship, and worshiping communities. This man lived a tortured life. And so what does he do? Luke says the man went and fell with his face to the ground and begged Jesus, "Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean." This was a disturbing thing for a leper to do, and people must have been shocked by it. Lepers were strictly forbidden to come into town. And Luke tells us that this incident took place while Jesus was in one of the cities. We can only imagine how horrified people were as this man approached, violating every convention of polite society. People must have backed away in terror, with mothers clutching their children and bystanders gasping in disbelief. But this man is on the precipice of a transforming encounter with Jesus. Why? Desperation and conviction. Desperation and conviction. He is desperate over his condition, and he clearly has a conviction that Jesus can do something about this, that Jesus has the power to deal with it. Now, there is a mystery as to why some come to feel this desperation and conviction and others don't. For example, why doesn't the entire leper colony join him? Why not join him? Go into town and collectively fall at his feet. I don't know. I don't know the answer to that. I just know something happened in this particular man's life that caused him to take the very unusual step of entering the city, seeking out Jesus, falling at his feet, and pleading for his power to heal him. He should not have been there. Culturally speaking, the leper had no business being there, but he's showing you something. He came out of his overwhelming sense of personal need, recognizing his situation for what it was. And this is the way everyone should come to Jesus. Needy and desperate for grace. One pastor tells a story about a well-groomed man in his church tapping him on the shoulder one Sunday morning to inform him that they had a first-time visitor among them. This well-groomed man said to his pastor, "Do you see that man?" Pointing to this first-time visitor. "Can you believe that he would come into the house of God with those dirty jeans and that ratty t-shirt? When he passed me in the hallway, he reeked of nicotine. Pastor, what are you going to do about that man? He is a distraction to my worship." This pastor writes, "Thankfully, after the service, another church member got to our visitor before this man could. The church member himself, recovering alcoholic, warmly welcomed the visitor, got his name, and asked him about his story. The visitor's name was George. He was recovering from a heroin addiction and felt like being part of a church could help him with that. When the leper approached Jesus, Jesus didn't say, oh no, dude, you go clean up yourself or something and then we'll talk. Clean isn't the precondition for coming to Jesus. Desperate and full of faith in the power of Jesus to do the cleaning is the precondition. This mistaken belief that says a person must clean up his or her own life in order to merit Jesus' presence is not Christianity. But this means that the church will be filled with immature and broken people who still have a long way to go emotionally, morally, and spiritually. You have heard me say this before, and I hold to it. The church is a hospital for sinners, not a museum for saints. The old hymn says this, come ye sinners, poor and wretched, weak and wounded, sick and sore. Jesus ready stands to save you, full of pity, joined with power. A precursor to a life-transforming encounter with Christ is desperation, conviction, needy for grace. Second, the radical nature of this transforming encounter with Jesus. When this leper falls before Jesus, he makes a request that ought to strike us as strange. Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. He doesn't say, Lord, if you are willing, you can heal me. What's going on here? There is much more going on here than a medical condition. This man is suffering from an identity crisis. To be clean isn't just to be healthy, but acceptable. Put yourself in his day-to-day existence. If you are unclean, something is wrong with you. You don't fit in. You aren't like other people. You aren't normal. You stick out. You're kicked out. To be unclean in the Bible meant that you either did something or something was done to you that made you damaged goods. That's how this guy feels. Can you relate? On any level, can you relate? You ever feel like damaged goods? This man isn't just suffering from a medical condition. He's suffering from an existential condition, an identity crisis, a relational crisis, a community crisis. Now, it may not be leprosy that does this to us today, but there are things that happen to us or things that we do to others that cause in us a sense of unacceptableness or uncleanness or worthlessness. You can hear the word shame in the word unclean. Ed Welch helps us with this. Sexual violations bring uncleanness to the victims. They should bring uncleanness to the perpetrator too. Unfaithfulness in marriage brings uncleanness to the betrayed spouse. It should bring uncleanness to the unfaithful spouse as well. Verbally battered men and women are filled with uncleanness. They have been told they are worthless, and once worn down, they believe it. Adopted children can feel different from children living with biological parents. Even when their adoptive parents love them exceedingly well, they can hear the message inside their heads, you were rejected. Somebody didn't want you. You're not like everyone else. If you are noticeably different physically, intellectually, or financially, you know uncleanness. And who doesn't feel noticeably different in at least one of those categories? Fall below the community standards of beauty, and you carry uncleanness with you. If you want to identify your leprosy, ask this question. What do you want to hide? That's a shortcut to identifying the source of this sense of uncleanness in your life. So you see, we have quite a bit in common with this leprosy-riddled man, don't we? He is after far more than physical healing. Philip Yancey put it well. He said, we in the West are still learning the difference between acts of charity and the more difficult task of changing a person's self-perception. That's what this man's asking for. Not just charity, but a change in his self-perception, a change in his identity. This guy lived with the sense that everywhere he went, there was a neon flashing light above his head with the word unclean. Some of you feel that way too. Everywhere you go, in your head at least, there is this neon flashing light above your head that says unclean. We long for a new neon sign that says something different. The problem is we try to change that sign ourselves. We try to change our identity in fruitless ways. Let me give you one example of this. Christina Kelly was a successful editor of various magazines tailored to young women. Magazines like Elle Girl, YM, Jane, Sassy. I'm not a subscriber, just for the record, I'm not a subscriber, but I came across this. Some years ago, she wrote this: why do we crave celebrities? Here's my theory. To be human is to feel inconsequential, unclean. So we worship celebrities and we seek to look like them. All the great things they have done, we identify with in order to escape our own inconsequential lives. But it's so dumb. With this stream of perfectly airbrushed, implanted, liposuction stars, you would have to be an absolute powerhouse of self-esteem already not to feel totally inferior before them. So we worship them because we feel inconsequential. But doing it makes us feel even worse. We make them stars, but then their fame makes us feel insignificant. I am part of this whole process as an editor. Here's how she finishes the article. No wonder I feel soiled at the end of the day. Kelly is saying we all feel inconsequential, unimportant, insignificant, unclean, defiled. Popular culture says this is how you fix it. Be pretty. Have perfect skin. Get thin. Look like the celebrities. And Kelly, who's documenting all this, is saying it doesn't work. It works in reverse. It makes you feel even more soiled, more unclean. And physical appearance isn't the only tactic we employ to try to cover up or fix our uncleanness. We use professional accomplishments. We'll use popularity, wealth accumulation, social media influence. We will look to almost anything to cover up our uncleanness. But just like Christina Kelly notes, none of them work. I think that's what created the desperation in this leper. Don't you think he has tried everything at his disposal to fix this? I think so. I think so. And it didn't work. He owned the fact that his condition was too overwhelming for a conventional solution to solve. You got that? He owned the fact that his condition was too overwhelming for a conventional solution to solve. So he took the extraordinary, outlandish, provocative, and controversial step of seeking out Jesus in a place he supposedly didn't belong. There is only one who can give you the cleansing you're looking for, the new identity you're looking for. There is only one who can give you the new neon sign that you desperately crave. Jesus. And if you're looking for Jesus, you belong here. He's the only one who can change your self-perception. He's the only one who can give you a new neon sign. How does he do that? The costly love it requires. Jesus reached out his hand and touched the man. I am willing, he said, be clean. And immediately the leprosy left him. Why does Jesus heal this way? There are examples of Jesus healing by just saying a word. Why does Jesus touch him? Well, imagine what this touch meant to this leper. He hadn't felt a human touch in years. What's going on? I think there's a couple of things going on. First, I think Jesus wanted the leper to feel the Savior's willingness and sympathy. The touch said, I am with you. I understand. I love you. I care about you. I'm so sorry you've had to deal with this. Dr. Dr. Keltner is a professor of psychology and scientific advisor for the Pixar film Inside Out. I didn't know they had those. He claims that human touch is the foundation of human relationships. He explains, skin to skin, parent to child, touch is the social language of our social life. The foundation of all human relationship is touch. There are 4 years of touch exchanged between mother and baby. In the social realm, our social awareness is profoundly tactile. Keltner was one of the co-authors for a study that looked at celebratory touches among NBA basketball players, including fist bumps, high fives, chest bumps, leaping shoulder bumps, chest punches, head slaps, head grabs, low fives, high tens, full hugs, half hugs, and team huddles. The researchers discovered that teams whose players touched one another a lot did better than those teams whose players didn't. Keltner has concluded that touch lowers stress, builds morale, and produces triumphs. A chest bump instructs us in cooperation. A half hug in compassion. One biblical counselor recounts the following story. He writes, I have a friend who is as far from touchy-feely as you can get. He likes his space. His emotional range is, well, restricted. When a surgical procedure went badly, he landed in the hospital for over 3 weeks. During that time, he had a small but steady group of visitors. I don't think a day passed without someone stopping in to visit and pray with him. But after he recovered, he couldn't stop talking about one particular visitor. It was an older man. I don't remember how they knew each other, probably a friend of a friend. This man came in the hospital room, sat on the bed, and held my friend's hand. He held it for what would normally be considered an uncomfortably long time. He just sat there and held his hand. This older man was the first person to touch my hospitalized friend in weeks. And while my friend was telling me this story, tears were rolling down his cheeks. Naturally, that made me want to hug him. But I decided to save it for the next time he was in the hospital. Now, I know some uncleanness has been produced by bad touches. In an overly sexualized culture, getting this right is difficult. But if we throw the baby out with the bathwater, I fear we may miss something good for us. Greet one another with a holy kiss is a command repeated 5 times in the New Testament. Now, I don't care to see y'all kissing each other after the service, but might there be good, holy, prudent, healing, and compassionate ways to engage in a ministry of touch like this man in the hospital received, or the leper received from Jesus? A touch that genuinely and sincerely says, I am with you, I understand, I love you, I care about you, I'm so sorry you've had to deal with this. Jesus did this. Is this the Jesus you know? But there's a deeper reason Jesus touched this man in order to heal him. There was a transaction being made. Jesus gives him cleansing restores him to community, and changes his identity. He has a new life. But after this miracle, where do we find Jesus? He's alone. He's out in desolate places. He's become an outcast. The leper and Christ have traded places. In fact, that's what happened on the cross. Jesus was crucified naked. Roman crucifixion wasn't just for the purpose of pain, but shame as well. On the cross, Jesus is the defiled one. He is the unclean one. He is the excluded one. He is damaged goods. For what purpose? So that you might be the clean one, the accepted one, the included one. Our uncleanness makes us feel worthless, whether it's due to sexual violation, marital unfaithfulness, verbal abuse, or being noticeably different physically, intellectually, or financially. Whatever it is we hide makes us feel worthless. But Jesus from the cross is saying to you, look at me. Do you think I would endure this for worthless people? Absolutely not. Let me take you back to the spring of 2011. Even in the U.S., the media outlets were abuzz with an event not even taking place in this country. The royal wedding of Prince William and the bride that he had found at his university, Kate Middleton. But imagine that William had gone about finding a bride differently. Imagine that the day before his wedding, he had gone down to one of London's red light districts and plucked a prostitute from one of the brothels there. Imagine William taking her by the hand, getting down on one knee and saying to her, I want to marry you. I won't take no for an answer. Imagine that he'd set the date, given her choice of wedding dresses that she wanted. And then the big day arrived. He'd taken her to Westminster Abbey and said, she's my wife. She's part of the royal family now. She will inherit all that I inherit. Treat her as what she is, royalty. I want you to imagine the cost William would pay for finding his wife that way. Would it have tarnished his name? Would it have brought disgrace upon the royal family? Would it have even been acceptable? Let me tell you something. It never would have happened because the clean don't do that for unclean people unless you're Jesus. This is what has happened to every Christian. From before the beginning of time, God wanted you. So he's plucked you from your dirty, sleazy, desperate condition. He's cleaned you up and married you and brought you into his divine royal family. At what cost? Jesus on a cross. He didn't want you just a little bit. The cost was too high. He wanted you a lot. You are wanted by the eternal, all-powerful, perfectly holy, astonishingly loving, lavishly merciful creator of the cosmos and redeemer of lost souls. You are wanted. And so to the sexually violated, Jesus says, you are not defiled in my eyes. I want you part of my family. To the betrayed spouse, Jesus says, you're not undesirable to me. I want you part of my family. To the verbally battered, Jesus says, you're not worthless. I want you part of my family. To all who feel as though they don't measure up to some arbitrary standard of intelligence, skill, or beauty, Jesus says, you're not unclean. I want you part of my family. Let's bow our heads. I want to give you a moment to reflect. As you can see, we have more in common with this leper than we realize. There are aspects to our lives, stories that are in the rearview mirror we keep tucked away out of sight. Stuff that's back there that we dare not trot out into the open because they're a source of shame. It might be something done to you or something you've done. But let's be clear, we are all naturally unclean. The problem is we attempt to clean ourselves up. We use our appearance, our careers, our job titles, our pay raises, even our church attendance or moral accomplishments to convince ourselves and others that we're clean. They don't work. The leper shows you what to do. In desperation and full of faith, come to Jesus for cleansing. What does the leper do? He talks to Jesus. What do we call that? Prayer. What does he say? Lord, if you are willing, you can make me clean. You can give me a new self-perception. You can give me a new identity. You can give me a new neon sign. If that's something you need to ask Jesus for, do it now. Jesus, I pray we would be convinced to the very bottom of our souls that we have indeed had a transforming encounter with you. Whatever labels we have used to describe our self-perception are gone. The only one that matters now is child of God. Pray these things in your name. Amen.